Hello and welcome to this episode of Sansad TV, in which we're looking at a subject which goes hand in hand with India's operational capability, but it's something which normally doesn't come up for discussion at various levels when you talk of how capable are India's armed forces. But as any soldier would know, that the heart of all military capabilities are the ability to sustain yourself logistically over long periods of time. And it's not an easy job. And to understand how logistics and maintenance facilities are provided to our frontline men, we have with us extremely well-informed, qualified, and a man who has handled this personally in his various service assignments, finally retiring as Director General of the Army Service and Logistics Corps. We have Lieutenant General Balbir Singh with us, who, apart from being a very good polo player, is also somebody who now lectures and writes on matters related to logistics, sustainability, and our capabilities, explaining it to a wider audience through various media forums. So, General Sir, I need you to explain briefly, firstly, because to draw the audience's attention to what is logistics, let us take our mind to the recent incursions by the Chinese on the LAC. The first thing that struck me when the Chinese intruded there, that logistics is going to be a long-term nightmare, as it is always there in the mountains. We have our supply lines, but for China, from what I understood, initially it was more difficult, but China, being what it is, has quickly made up those gaps. So what is it that logistics in the mountains demand, which includes winter stocking of troops, which includes providing them the necessary wherewithal to remain warm, well-fed, and motivated to fight?
Okay, Maroof, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me. You know, anything which we do against the grain of, say, population or against the grain of civilization, it needs more effort, right? The mountains are supposed to be lived in by a very sparse population, all in nature. However, because of geopolitical compulsions or border disputes or the need to defend your country, we are now required to put a large body of troops in an unnatural environment when you go as per the norms of the society. And also, as per the norms of the society, all your production takes place where there is an industrial base, in the heartland or say in coastal areas. Whereas again, you have to move all that stock to a place like, say, Ladakh or the northeast mountains. Hence, the art of logistics is supposed to be putting the right material in right quantity at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
Like you said just now, if I want to fight combat, those four things you said, I need to be well fed, I need to be well clothed, I need to be comfortable, and above all, I need to feel cared for. And so that my morale is high, and that's what gets you, back the peaks like Kargil and others. So to do this unnatural living, unnatural deployment, we need to move higher quantity of stuff to remote areas. And let me assure you that Indian Army, for a place like Ladakh and other, say, mountainous area, a thing called advanced winter stocking, the planning in Delhi starts more than a year in advance. The latitude given and the barometer of your success. If I was the Director General of Supplies and Transport, if a few troops do not get the food of their choice in Delhi, Bombay, Jaipur, I think it might be ignored by the formation commanders, by my chief and others. But we cannot have one man getting less than 1 gram of his authorization in Siachen Glacier or in upper reaches of Ladakh. That's the kind of importance we give. Notwithstanding Chinese ability, and it was very pleasant to see, I saw a general officer, the chief of staff of 14 Corps, on the TV briefing on the logistics preparation in view of the incursions. Indian Army normally keeps that little cushion for additional troops if they are required, which is a very, very big challenge because a lot of it will go waste if you don't induct those troops. So we are generally geared to do this, and we have the ability to up the quantum by various means, both land and air.
Okay, so your last word leads me to the question which I've been waiting to ask, and that is, much of our supply to our soldiers on the front line is really thanks to the Air Force. Because the airlift capability and the ability of the Air Force pilots to go beyond the stated heights that their equipment can go is stuff of legend. And they've often crossed the barriers, but put their life at risk, but made sure the furthest most soldiers get what they require. But there is another limitation, and the limitation is high altitudes in particular do not allow aircrafts to lift the kind of loads you would normally expect them to lift, because there is a lot of pressure on the aircraft because of high altitude. You cannot fly beyond noon, so everything has to be done in the mornings. You cannot carry a full fuel load because the aircraft cannot take off, so your range of being able to deliver is limited. How is that impacted on the planning and delivery?
Okay. You know what, Maroof, very, very pertinent question, and the answer is very interesting. Let me tell you one thing. Let's compliment our air warriors and the army for the synergy that they generate to operate in the mountains, say in a place like the bases, I'm not going to name, where you do the packing. The air maintenance battalion of that location, say Chandigarh and others, stay awake the whole night. Their business starts in the evening. When the Russians come, they pack, they take it to the aircraft. Early morning, there is no such restrictions for the aircrafts to be able to, because they're taking off from the planes. They go full load, they land there, and you are absolutely right, the time for the effect of high altitude and heat comes into play somewhere around 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And just another incident, during the high command course, we landed in Thois, and we landed with AN-32s with good about 30 people there. And when it took off, by the time we had our briefing and others, it was about 11 o'clock. So only 2 people were taken in that aircraft. Rest had to come by, pilot, co-pilot, the crew plus 2. So that effect comes primarily in the afternoon, and mostly that's why from planes to the mountains, high altitude, the loads are taken early in the morning. And then thereafter, for getting back, obviously don't have the capacity to take much thing in return.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Thois. We all know it's up front near Siachen Glacier.
Yeah.
We also know that Siachen Glacier, the LAC, and a lot of adjoining areas are all part of 14 Corps. And 14 Corps has probably the largest in the world high altitude deployment in terms of commitments. And so is the state of play on the northeast along the McMahon line.
Correct.
Now, how much coordination is required, not just on the ground, but at the headquarter level, since you have served as MGSC, that how much coordination you need to do on a regular basis with the Air Force, and why isn't a centralized coordination cell set up which can take care of this requirement without it coming to you, then going to the Air Force equivalent of logistics? Why can't it be done under, say, the CDS's headquarters?
See, I am not in picture about the latest coordination point. All integration of logistics is under the CDS.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
And let me also assure you, see, there is a degree of specialization and there's a degree of integration.
Right.
If I put this whole thing under, say, a person and who has to again go, the aircrafts cannot be dedicated. Like they say, air resources are flexible and agile and stuff like that. Likewise, the economies of scale comes in if you do one centralized procurement. Economies of scale, quality control, standardization. Hence, systems already exist, as you are aware. I mean, you are an absolutely enlightened soldier. So, when we do the Air Force Army coordination for offensive air attack, logistic support, reconnaissance, likewise, we have an army officer who is posted in the air headquarters, as well as an officer who's on ground in the Eastern Air Command, who is known as, I think, Air Maintenance Office or something like that.
Just like an FAC is
in the counter
operational roles, the Air Force officer is there.
So I only assure you, while this coordination will always continue to be improved upon, the existing systems gives you coordination at each level, theatre level, as well as the army headquarter level and air headquarter level, which ensures that the things move smoothly. So like I said, specialization and integration need to be balanced to get the best output.
Okay, there's a very interesting point made by General Mohanty as Vice Chief of the Army, and he had said that, you know, what is required is there needs to be an operational logistics vision. And the vision of the future that is being suggested at all levels, and I'm sure you would be familiar with it, is that the frontline soldier and all service providers should be able to interact on a click of a button. For example, just like you order something from Amazon and the rest of the process of packing that product, delivering it to your address and the payment gateway, everything gets served just by the click of a button. And he had quoted that example. How can it be done in the case of the military and ensuring that a senior commander, despite every headquarters having enough officers who are doing precisely this logistics coordination, we don't spend so much of time toing and froing, and we ensure that the whole chain is in place and all you need to do is maybe just a click of a button. Is it happening? Is it there?
Okay, I'll tell you the basic concept of maintenance in the up to the operational area, whereas when I say operational area means up to the core rear boundary.
Yes.
It works on push model. While the demand by the battalion comes, I mean, nowadays it's a natural calculation. It's the duty of the brigade to make sure it reaches forward. It's the duty of the divisional logistic elements to make sure it reaches within the reach of the brigade. And likewise, at the army headquarters, it was my business as head of the service to make sure things reach right within the reach of the core, that's the operational area. And within the operational area, it was the command headquarters. So frankly speaking, if it is someplace it's not happening, it's a flaw. But the current model of logistics of Indian Army and Indian Armed Forces for that matter works on push model. It's the responsibility of the rear echelon and rear headquarter. That is why, see, you cannot take logistics away from operations.
Absolutely.
Hence, we call it operational logistics.
Yes.
You cannot overload the troops in the forward area by overdumping, while the army works on the model of just in case, unlike the corporate world, which works on the model of just in time. Because just in time is economy oriented, just in case is assurance oriented. And why we have reserves at each level, right from the battalion, actually from the company and the battalion and the brigade, which have been rationalized over the years because we don't want to overdump them, yet we want to have something within easy reach. So this chain is well oiled, this chain is well laid out, and for sure, I think as per me, we are designed to operate in the manner in which it is desired by the Vice Chief. And it is now, like they say, logistics is a function of command.
Absolutely.
If an army commander's logistic elements are not doing this, he needs to pull them up and vice versa. And likewise, at every level, troops never should have to look over their shoulders for what is coming.
No, that is the singular, to me, the singular biggest requirement of command.
Yeah.
Because, yes, keeping your men motivated is one responsibility. Giving them very clear operational directions is another responsibility. But at the end of the day, I mean, just to draw one parallel to the ongoing Russian operations in Ukraine, you know, I often get asked that why are there halts in the operation? I said, because having operated with mechanized troops also, I said, normally they are only self-sufficient for 72 hours plus minus. After that, they need an immediate replenishment group to show up somewhere, or some kind of marrying up with forces that are already in place and ready to provide them more logistics. And to coordinate that is a equally big challenge, if not bigger. Because an armed soldier, trained soldier, given a target, given weapon systems, will play merry hell with them. But उसके पीछे से क्या आना है, that is something which people don't see and don't give enough credit to. Unlike some Western armies, I believe they give a lot of more importance to logistics than we do.
So, Maroof, let me tell you one thing. Any army in an offensive, if it has to take logistic pause, they need to wake up, right? Indian army, as per my knowledge and as per my experience, the way we design ourselves, if I am head of that logistics, I will be shamed if I have to take my formation commanders to take a logistic pause because I could not make it reach well in time. Yes, troops fight when they are given, and you are well geared. At what stage are you going to have consume more ammunition? And at which stage of the battle of an offensive are you going to need more fuel? And it's normally inversely proportionate. When there are more engagements, your movement is less, whereas your ammunition consumption is more. So I personally feel there should never be a requirement for a logistic pause for offensive operations.
No, but unlike the Navy, for example, when it's patrolling the high seas, it and the Air Force have this concept of air-to-air refueling or refueling of ships on the high seas. How do you replenish the fuel of moving armored columns and tank columns? How do you provide soldiers who are sitting into armored personnel carriers or ICVs with more ammunition when heavy fighting continues without having some kind of a disengagement for a short while before you get back into the scene? How do you do it?
Okay. See, Maroof, 72 hours, you are self-contained.
Right.
And when I say 72 hours, the entire formation, an armored brigade or a division is self-contained. But at any part of the day or night, it is only 1/3 or little more than 1/3 or half the troops who will be in contact.
Okay.
So
you
the
basically
others have, and it is the formation commander's job thereafter, or the combat group commander's job thereafter, to continue to replenish a sub-unit who get back, and there is an IRG with whom you are tied up to reach that RV, which is in a safer place from the frontline troops. And now these guys are available to be frontline.
So basically rotating troops in contact.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
now I'll come to another important question which needs little more understanding. Each service headquarter of our three major services, Army, Navy, Air Force, have their own hierarchy of logistics. You have the Adjutant General, the Quartermaster General, Master General Ordnance, Engineer-in-Chief, and people like yourself, all somehow linked to this logistic story. Please explain, firstly, how it works for the Army. How is it any different for the Air Force and Navy?
Okay. Let me first give you the ultimate part of the answer. I wish we all had same logistic infrastructure at the Army headquarters, at Air headquarters, Naval headquarters, and the command headquarters. And I wish we had the same formats and forms for demanding and supplying, which at this juncture we do not have. IDS for a few years have been continuously undertaking this job of integrating the logistics. If you want to ask for, say, a ration or a fuel in the Army, you use form, say, 2014 or something. When you do it in the Navy and Air Force, you use a different form, which is something which should have been absolutely avoidable. I agree, right? Say in the case of Army, we have the operational logistic functions being looked after primarily by the Quartermaster General, under whom is the ASC and RVC others. We have the Master General of Ordnance, under whom there's a little rehash, I'm told now, under whom is the EME and the ordnance, ammunition, repair, procurement of all this is under them. And we also have the AG's branch, which look after the HR functions, starting from manpower planning, manpower replenishment, and welfare and other stuff, and discipline, etc. Whereas the case of Navy and Air Force, there's a chief of material, there's a chief of logistics, and those functions are not exactly following the model of the army or vice versa. And one of the job for integration, because the whole purpose of the CDS and the whole purpose of theatre command is to integrate various functions. It's vertical integration and horizontal integration. So probably a day will come, the issue is in hand. As I was interacting towards the fag end of my service, as also post-retirement, I wrote some documents on this. This integration is absolutely necessary for us to fight the future wars.
Okay, yeah, so that was the answer I was leading you on to, and you got on to it immediately.
Absolutely.
Which is right. Now, another quick question, preferably a short answer. I'm told artificial intelligence, which is what people are suggesting, the need for robots, everything else, is why not in the armed forces? Now, I remember the late General Bipin Rawat once telling me that we are looking at largely using that for logistics. Please explain.
Okay. You, Maroof, you are well informed. I remember the other day in some social forum, there was a discussion of use of AI in combat, right? All that it needs is replicating of something wrong, and you will have your own side in trouble. But yes, personally speaking, I remember when I was a young officer, we had laborers picking up stuff and carrying in the case of ASC supply depots and others. Over the years, we have mechanical means to do the same thing. A time has come probably for appropriate, intelligently, if we use AI, we can offset a lot of manpower, we can speed up certain jobs, and we can reduce human intervention. Artificial intelligence for sure has a lot of place in the logistics, in the rare areas, and probably at the fag end of the operational areas. Okay. As long as it doesn't have any risk in delivering because there's no room for failure in the combat zone. So artificial intelligence, as we grow by, as we develop, for sure has a place in logistics first and anywhere else later.
Well, all very well put, sir. Quite clearly, you have explained, I've learned from this show, and one is always learning, and explained, how this all works. I think you've cleared the air about the assumption that soldiers are only required to have enough ammunition to fight the battle of that day, and all on the assumption that they'll win that day. So nothing more is required on day 2 and day 3. But prolonged battles required prolonged planning, and nothing can go wrong. There are no silver medals in war, as we all know.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for being with us and for enlightening us, and thanks for watching. Until our next episode, goodbye.